What's up, guys? Mm-hmm. It's a less spot did before. It's been changed. All right. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I gotta get some stuff turned on here, but we should be good in a minute. Happy Sunday. It's a good color. Was there a GS update? What? I don't know what you're talking about. Update? Like for beta subscribers? Hmm. That'd be weird. Is that a ticker, Saber? Did the data get fixed? I don't actually know if the data's fixed or not yet. Probably take a look. Nope. Would appear no. Hmm. Well, I don't have vol charts for SPX. Seems like maybe it's a SIBO problem. I don't have vol charts for anything. Vol page and GXS won't load for me though. Yeah, same. Hold on. I might be able to still. Give me 1 second. Okay. This isn't going to be fair for everybody else, but. And remember that these values aren't going to necessarily reflect what you see in your version, but it does appear that we do not have the same error on our production environment, so or non-production environment. So I'll be able to do the stream. But I think it had to do with, I think it has to do with either SIBO or like an update we pushed might have broken things. Um, and you know, Dork's house is on fire or going to be on fire or close to being on fire at some point. He's next to a large fire, so he's a little preoccupied at the moment. MP and Google. So I'll be able to do this, but you know, I'm not going to be able to, like, you're not going to be able to back check it against. It kind of sucks because you're not going to be able to back check it against your own until we get that fixed. But at least I can get the coverage done. SLS, Baidu, Love. Interesting choices. We got to attack NVIDIA. We do. Yeah, they have earnings this week. I feel like a lot of the tickers you guys bring up are just earnings, which are very useless for analyzing the options chain, since they all generally are trending the same way. I try to ignore the fact that earnings is approaching. Celsius. Apple. Netflix. Microsoft. Walmart. Dash look good for a short. You can check it out. The thing you're describing possibly sounds bullish, but I'll need to go look at it. Did I miss any? Okay, I'll get started on these, and if you guys want to add some more, I'll do it. Someone was asking about BTU. Obviously, the energy sector starting to see a lot of demand and improvement. It does look like some of the shorter dated buying on it maybe fell off on Friday, but Delta's been accumulating pretty nicely. A little bit of support back at 25. It's not really above gamma max, but there is like a peak in gamma out here at like around $30, 29.50 to 30. But then there's another like far out of the money peak, up at like $45. Like out here, there's like a whole bunch of gamma. And this is probably like longer dated positioning, like 2027 leaps. These are September, which is interesting. Those are mostly leaps, some September. Puts out here also, those protective puts at 32 and 30 are kind of interesting as well. Delta, not a whole lot to the upside, but more than enough to get out to 30. Pretty easy to fall back towards 25. I'll probably look out into the OPEX. Yeah, that doesn't even look terrible for the upside either. 29's decent resistance. Okay. Everything's trending up. Options are a little overpriced relative to realized on the 30-day. Same on the 10. So a little bit of positive VRP both places. and calls are a little pricey on the 30 days. So people might be selling calls up here 30 days out. I don't know if they're going to start doing it 10 days out right away, but they might. Does BTU have earnings coming up, or is that already done? It's done. They weren't even great. Um, the next like technical level of some importance to the upside is like up at like 32.47 to like 33. It seems quite hard to get out that high. I know there's a little upside gap that's not filled at like 28.19. So that's somewhat important. Hmm. I don't see a lot of demand for pets anywhere. Kind of already went over that. The hell? Oh, that's in the right place. Finally? It's amazing. Still looks like calls being bought to the upside locally. Those probably aren't sold yet. Those might be sold. Some of them in the money still. No in the money puts being added. So yeah, I would say it's got room to keep pushing up to about 30. But it's unlikely to push higher than that. And people are going to start selling calls on it, so I wouldn't trust the move up to 30. Gamma's pretty high here already. There is a little bit of like correction going on in the chain, which if GN gets back out over DN could be somewhat advantageous. Um, and I would say most of that, like far out of the money positioning, is probably abandoned from back in like March. Um, so yeah, oil and energy price escalation, driving more coal demand is probably the only thing improving their prices right now because their earnings are not good. But yeah, I would say upside target of 30, but expect a lot of heavy call selling into any test up there. So it's definitely more advantageous to probably sell calls alongside while the option pricing is a little bit more favorable than it is to try to continue to play upside on it. Unless we get like a squeeze in oil or something crazy, but I think the news over the weekend was more attempts at like tacoing or some bullshit. The New York Post reported that like Strait of Hormuz traffic increased 400%, which would be, literally a move from like four fucking tankers to, Jesus, um, 16, but or four ships to 16 ships, but I don't think it's true, and I didn't see any other sources citing it. All right. We got some more. A, B, and B. Start. MP. Oh no, I got MP. TMC. All right. Let's do Google. Hmm. Google's interesting, but Delta's still coming off. There's some short dated buying on it. If that's the start of a bounce. Hmm. Volume's been increasing a little bit. I guess 350 is a good test. If it can push out above 350, that's pretty bullish. It doesn't look like it's going to be able to. There's like no fucking delta on the chain between 350 and 365. There's like way more room to the downside. Same here. Like this can fall back to 330 pretty easily. Trim these up. Yeah. There's a little bit of support at 40. Above 350 is squeezy. Yeah, the 40 support is really the only thing stabilizing this year. If that slips, it's straight to 30. So, I mean, I think puts are gonna or skews are gonna be up. Yeah, a little bit, not a lot. Options are very cheap, which does incentivize. Well, normally some buying. You got a big bump in IV down here at the 330 strike for the 28th for this Friday, which is there's also one at like 305 for next Friday. Both of those are not indicative of people buying into the call side. Call IV looks pretty fucked uh, all the way out to like 45, 50, 55 is fairly flat relative to the big ass bump in IV at 30. Um, Gamma falls off very fast, and it's pretty easy for this to pin to the gamma flip because the supportive gamma is thin. And that's, that brings things back to 330 right there. And honestly, it keeps falling off under that down to like 310. And look how, like, the curve is super steep. This is usually not bullish. Usually flatter curves for gamma are more bullish. This looks bad. I don't actually like this. Let's see what people are doing here. So it does look like puts are still being bought, especially like this strip right here, with some concentration down here by like 25, 20 with longer dated shit. And there's also big in the money put positions at 75 and 390. So these are probably protective. They're not huge, but like 800, 1200 contracts. Call side's kind of mixed. 3042 buying, maybe 3475 buying. These are probably sold. Been a lot of accumulations and calls on that strike since like the 15th, which is like right here. Well, I guess the 14th. Yeah, interesting. So there's been some dip buying over the last like 5 sessions. It does look like they're buying those calls, but the 18th, yeah, since the 18th. So the 18th, 3rd, picked up more on the 18th. Probably sold. I would say that this has a bit of a bearish bias. Gamma's still really thin. Maybe if it gets a move back above like 347.50 or 348.06 technically. Then I would have a little bit more faith in it breaking the sold wall at 50. But GM's going the wrong way. I would say most of the buying is right at spot, which isn't in particularly bullish still. Not a lot of far out of the money buying at all. It seems like it's more likely to slip and fill maybe the downside gap from back here, which would be like 329.82. Does seem bears are playing that. 9-4 is divvy day for what? Google? Interesting. They're yeah, maybe it keeps selling off into the dividend. I mean, even if you like mark Wednesday as a reversal point or Thursday as a reversal point, like is a lower high, so I would still kind of expect a pullback towards like 38 even at least, and then I'd want to see support there. Otherwise, yeah, just fill the downside gap, like another leg down. Looks more likely. Like down here. Like just see this is a lower high here. Right. And so even though we have a lot of at the money buying on Friday, there wasn't a lot of out of the money buying, and Delta continued to slide off. So people weren't buying like calls in the money in size or anything like that. Or selling longer dated puts, which makes it look like whatever's going on here is probably gonna like it's like a knee jerk reaction to slipping the like the gamma neutral point. Probably a lot of like put sellers, short dated call buyers coming in on the drop below GN there. But then like I don't think it's a strong enough bounce to get at least not yet. It's not strong enough to get continuation. SLS. I don't know if I have SLS on here. I do. Okay, never mind. Ooh, that's interesting. Small chain, but looks very bullish. This is gonna probably need to mean revert at some point. I'll check the gamma curve to make sure. But there was a pretty big drop in gamma Friday. Rest of the indications seem moderately bullish. Almost nothing longer dated on the chain at all. Vega exposure is like, well, it's 0. Yeah, it's just really fucking interesting. Or if that's an artifact of some sort instead. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any interest above 15. So I would say this is likely to pull back, and options are massively overpriced. Like skew 30s at 14 points, and then like there's a an 80 point like VRP is 80 points. So call sellers are going to come in here and smush down all of this. Probably it's extremely advantageous to do so. But yeah, and there's a similar advantage on the 10-day as well. Those are even that's an even wider VRP spread. So yeah, I would say get some call selling here. If we actually go back and look like the last peak, June 29th, that'd be a good thing to check out, because it was also above so it was like back here. Yeah, see how it got real wide? But people were selling the calls way before the IV fully peaked. So you see like skew 30 slams down, and then the IV starts to fall. It actually stayed moderately elevated, but the 10-day is probably a little more reactive. So June 29th, right around here. Yeah, you see where everybody piled into the sold calls right there. Like Ivy went from like 258 down to like 187. And this is all just them shorting the fuck out of that vol as long as they could. And that's probably the funny thing about that is it's probably about 30 days. Like, say exactly the window. What is that? It's June 29th to, yeah, July 28th. God, I love vol. I love it so much. How cool is that shit, huh? What if all market participants just behave exactly the way you expect them to all the time? Because they all rely on quantitative analytics that tell them the exact same information. I should say all large participants. Anyway, and then the probably 30 days for that to pull off almost. Right, like the next 30-day window is the short vol pulling off because it was no longer advantageous to short vol. So you literally have like two 30-day windows. It'd be a lot cooler if the page would load. Well, it does for me, so. But we'll get it. We'll try to get it fixed as soon as Dork's house is done burning down. Anyway, yeah, I would probably want to sell calls on that. That looks pretty good. Let's see if anybody's doing that. Not yet, unless they're selling them in the money, which is ballsy, but I like it. The only problem I see with that is gamma doesn't peak here. Like there's still accumulation of gamma to the upside, so there is some risk in selling calls here. Like gamma flattens out a lot as it moves up, but and it's really obviously really hard to move into this range without a huge amount of demand, but it technically could keep going up. Like gamma max is really at 27. This is the shitty part about like super illiquid chains like this is they have like local and higher peaks in gamma. So if we look at like the Greek by strike, like you can see there's like most of the gamma on the chain is here. And so this is theoretically the max, but this is also max. It's just a bit smaller and way the fuck farther out of the money. Price moving in this range is very interesting, especially if there's like a lot of Vega in between there, which there isn't. But so this is actually far less exciting. But I would say almost any upside price all the way out to 20 looks like a fun call selling opportunity on it. And the pricing is extreme to say the least. So there's a lot of padding. Oh fuck me! I deleted the thing again. There we go. I gotta manually erase stuff. Can't just clear the screen. Okay, so SLS is done. Baidu. That's a weird one. What's with the Chinese shit, Lion? Ooh, that looks fun. Baidu looks bouncy. Bouncy on VN. People buying the dip. There's still Delta falling off, but it's probably on short positions. Options are getting more bought. Gamma snapback almost to neutral very quickly. So these are probably all sold puts, 90, 92, 95, right? Because we see VN like start immediately after the drop. We see VN start moving down. That downward pressure on VN is probably all those sold puts we see down in like the 90, 92 range, like right in here. Looks like closing price Friday was 93.21, so there's probably a little bit of upside resistance right around here at 100, a little bit of 99. But I mean, if this gets out above 95, then it's clean sailing out to like 104, 105. So it could be a very violent bounce. There's a little bit of gamma in the way, or delta in the way. So 100 is interesting. I don't know how pertinent that is for September OPEX. It's not as bad for September OPEX. Yeah, 105 still looks possible here. There's a little bit of delta support at 92.90 where those sold puts are. What date are those? Oh, those are like this week. A lot more confidence in the 90 strike than the 92. Same with 95. Yeah, skews rocketing. So 30-day skews moving up, and options are still really cheap here. So probably big advantage to call buyers that want to come in. Skews pushing up a little bit here also, and options are a little underpriced relative to realized. So cheaper calls on the chain, and not much room to move down. I mean, it looks real hard to move under 89. So, I mean, if you had some theta, I think the upside looks pretty promising. And I would say 105, but it could extend beyond that. It could really push out to all the way to like 115. And then it kind of gets stuck a little. But with the positioning on the chain right now, that seems not impossible. Total delta would decline though, because these are probably bought puts. And that's what we're seeing pull back on Friday. Like we see delta on Friday dropped real hard. So it went from like 1.296 billion to 1.18, which is not quite 10%, but it's a fairly big drop in delta as a percentage. So a lot of those puts pulling back as options become more bought over the last 2 days, and then gamma snapped back up, so that's somewhat bullish, especially if it moves positive. I would say the test, like the breakout point for this, is gamma neutral, so 96.20, which is probably moving down closer to 95 into tomorrow. Yeah, Jan and September seem good. September's a little riskier, but Jan seems good. Love. Oof. This does not look good. This looks pretty bearish. Very steady decline in delta alongside price. Looks like there's been a few attempts at buying the dip, and those failed. So bulls keep getting wrecked. There's a bit of a turnaround in gamma, which maybe bulls attempting to buy back into this again. Obviously, the last 2 days, GN dropped really sharply, but VN's not moving down, so we don't have a lot of put sellers coming in to back the move. Gamma Max is still moving up, which is bearish. This definitely does not look as good, and you can see that there's fewer sold puts here, like than what we just saw in Baidu. So slipping 40, not very hard, and that opens a move down to 37.50. There's almost no delta to the downside, so this could just literally rocket down, and it doesn't look like it stops until you get out to like 32. Yeah, like 32.50 is the first even tiny support, and it is tiny. There's big resistance up at 45. There's not a lot in the way to the upside either. It just doesn't look very good. Skews a little negative. Puts are still cheap. Options are still cheap, I should say. That's more accurate, but I would say they're buying puts. Same thing here. Skews flatter on the 10-day and improved over the last 2 days. Yeah. So it might be that like some short dated buying came in, but I don't think it looks like it has traction yet. And yeah, this can slide back towards like 39, 38 pretty easily, just as easily as it can move to 42. Out above 42 looks very bullish though. This like right here and up, that looks really good. Like out to 47.50 and then it kind of slows down. Let's see what people are doing. Yeah, so there was some profit taking on the puts. Maybe not enough, and there's still in the money puts coming in locally. On the call side, maybe some longer dated bullishness. Although the moves in these contracts are pretty small. This is out on the leap expiry and March. Yeah, so people may be more bullish out past the end of the quarter. Like out here into December, Jan. Looks like there's more confidence there at least. December, Jan, March. I definitely don't like the way it looks right now. It definitely looks like it can just sell off. VN may act as a resistance to the upside here. Sometimes it does. See how like back here you can kind of see how it's doing that a little bit. You know, falls below VN and then stays under it. And it takes like quite a big amount of buying to break out back above VN. And then since VN never stabilizes, like nobody wants to sell the puts, then it just failed again. Interesting trajectory though. All right, NVIDIA. Ooh, NVIDIA doesn't look very good. Options more sold, delta falling off, starting to fill downside gaps towards like back towards like what 200, 206. It's 95, low 94. Okay, that filled. Yeah, this doesn't look great. Anytime like the upside move becomes detached from gamma max, that's usually not a great sign. I will say, over the last couple of years, NVIDIA spent very, very little time below gamma neutral. Really just March of 26. Unless you go back to like when we crashed in 25, which why does nobody talk about that? Is it because Trump just tacoed it away? It was still a crash. I mean, like, look, that was nasty. The video went from fucking 153 down to $86 in like 2 weeks. Like a 50% drop. Yeah, this doesn't look great. I mean, overall lower high. Didn't get back to like the May highs, and then we'll see. But their earnings have been really unimpressive over the last year. SOX S, probably better to look at SOX L, but maybe I'll take a look at both. Yeah, I mean this doesn't look particularly great right now. Probably some put selling here at like 1250. Upside's open out to 220, but so's the downside. Very little minor support at 212.50. If that slips, then it's a pretty straight shot down to like 190 on the gamma side. For delta, obviously 200's a little bit more packed. But I think price could just get trapped here into earnings, like this, like 205 range on either side, like 205 to 10 to 200, like right in between. I could see price falling into here and getting stuck. But yeah, a little bit of support at 10. Bias is kind of that way. But a back over 215's somewhat bullish as well. Just out to 220 though. So I mean, these are the two big, like, motherfucker. These are the two big focal points, and then whichever one breaks out would confirm. The only problem with the lower one is like there's not a lot of range on the breakdown, so you'd kind of have to just short here and hope for the best, which is a little risky for the downside, or go long here on the break to the upside of this, and then but that's also kind of limited unless you get out above 220. Out above 220 probably opens up 230, maybe higher. And how are people treating that? Options are a little overpriced. Put demand is a little elevated. Obviously, IV is extraordinarily high. I will say there's not a whole lot of IV to short here. IV's been kind of falling off. So I would say that, it's really only picked up since the 14th. It's relatively low, so at least not a lot of expectations baked into the 30-day for earnings. Whereas, 10-day IV is insanely high. So if you wanted to like sell calls or something, it would have to be out here. SKU's been very bullish over this period of time. So lots and lots of dip buyers. It's NVIDIA, which is, that's expected to some degree. Very steep gains in gamma to the upside out to about 2250. The drop off's a little shallower though, and this is where it gets hung up, like that 210 to 200 range right here. It's consistent if it continues to move down, but not super bearish. This would be like kind of choppy. This would be very bullish. Basically, the peak's out at like 237.50, so you can ignore all the shit out above that. At least for now. CRISPR, and what was the other one? CRSP. Fubo. Oh, should look at EPAM too. I know EPAM ran last week. All right. That's what I got for NVIDIA. Sorry, it's not more enticing, but earnings weeks always suck. Usually chains are fairly neutral. Celsius looks very bullish. GN dumped harder on Friday. Gamma's very high, almost a bit blown out on this push to the upside, but Gamma Max is still moving up. Likely due to calls being sold. Gamma Max is at like 34 on Thursday, so people were probably selling the calls pretty aggressively on Friday, but it's still closed at the high of the day, which is quite bullish going into next week. It could mean that the sold calls that came in are going to get blown out. Those are largely at 35, as you can see here. And a blowout of those does open a move like almost directly out to 40. There's a little bit of delta out there, not much, but price would move very quickly through this range. And some structured support to the downside, but 35 is obviously the big hurdle for more upside on this. Skews pretty flat. Options are very cheap still. So most of the IV has already gotten shorted out, which makes the upside calls underpriced on the 30-day. But on the 10-day, the pricing's normalizing pretty quickly. HV is coming down pretty fast. IV's around 59. It's still worth selling calls here, but it's becoming less worth selling calls pretty quickly. Yeah, there's tons of gamma to the upside on the curve. Actually, Vega might be somewhat important here on a break of 35. Lana. Yeah. Yeah, this could I mean this could like really rock it if it keeps pushing that, especially over 35. But yeah, we'd have to see if those calls get squeezed. See what people are doing. Calls are being closed. So some of the sold calls at 35 are already being closed, like the longer dated ones. We only really see them being added here. That might be somewhat bullish in and of itself. Um, there's not a ton of call buying, but the put selling is extremely concentrated all the way down to 30. So people clearly seem to think that's a good deal on the stock. Um, these are probably not bot puts, and if they are, they're deeply fucked. So this does look bullish. It looks like it might get more upside. The technical like level here, closing the prior high, 34.19 could be important. I would watch out for that for a rejection. If it rejects there, then you probably don't want to be in it. Um, Especially if it's hard, but then out above that is above 35, and that's where things get kind of squeezy. So you'd be looking at like 35.75 would be the next pretty important level, and then like 37.40 above that, and then you start filling in gaps, big upside gaps back in like March. Also, the accumulation of delta has been very consistent since the lows. The chain is healing. Celsius. Oh. Hmm. That doesn't look good. Yeah, Apple looks bad. Apple loses a lot with post earnings with the dispersion trade. Remember, don't forget that all of the other tech companies are in like the negative side of the dispersion trade now because their earnings are past. So people have just been shorting the fuck out of their vol. Apple still has some support at 300, but very little support left. Um, Obviously big on the delta side, but can keep moving. Um, Being trapped up here is still stable, but losing 300 is bearish back down to like 280. Use coming down, some more protective puts being bought. IV's also coming down, so calls probably also being sold. Those options are already underpriced and they're still selling them. So that's a good indication that no one's very bullish on this. The 10 day is a little different. Options are slightly overpriced, but people may start selling these simply because they offer a better return. Huge out of the money spikes in vol. to the downside. Everything's like skewed a little bit bearish, just barely, but a little. The drop off in gamma does stabilize, but it stabilizes around like 300, and then it starts to slow down a little. Upside gains in gamma are very quick, back out to 320. That's interesting. So slipping the current level is pretty bad. These calls are pretty far out of the money. These look sold. I would say they're still selling all these calls right here in this block. So like the 315 to 330, which means upside tests will probably get sold off. Let's see what the puts look like. A little bit of like in the money put positioning, not heavy yet. But sold puts closing, which is somewhat bearish. These are close enough to spot. They may be bought also, like the 300 to 310s. Also, like a big strip of them here, which is probably bearish. So people targeting a pullback to 300. So yeah, I would say Apple looks pretty bad. I don't like it. Hard to lose 300, but if it does, it'll definitely keep going. Netflix has been killing it, but it does look like the run's exhausted a little bit. So probably time for a pullback and find a new floor. That's probably around 75. A breakout above 80 is very bullish, obviously. Like it can keep pushing up, like 85, 90, but not a lot of delta out there yet. Most of the delta is back here at 75. So I would say this probably fails the current level and pulls back to 75. Build up more support, which we can check later, and then push up again. Try to push out again. When does all of this sold call delta fall off? Quite a lot of it on the September OPEX, so maybe out past September OPEX, things get more bullish. We'll take a look at the 30-day. Well, actually, let's take a look at the 60-day. Let's see what people are doing out here. Options are a little cheap. So they're still selling the calls out here. But skews not as strong as it was a couple days ago. Yeah, I would say even these are getting sold currently. Skew is picking up on the 30-day, and options there are cheap. So probably a little bit more bought on 30-day. And Ivy is down. Ivy's down on both of those. So probably sold calls came in Friday. Looks like they did on the 10 and the 30-day. Which Gamma's actually really flat. Hard to get above 82.50. But pretty easy to fall back down to like 73. Yeah, about 82. A little maybe this is speculative buying. This is a very high concentration of calls like at the money. Some of these might be bought, but I would say overall, given the drop in IV, these are sold, and this is like out through the OPEX. So the week following. Put side fairly even. Yeah, if there's much to say about this. Might be. I don't think these are sold at 80. So, and a lot of the in the money or out of the money puts are closing, and the in the money puts. More out of the money, so still slightly bearish bias on that too. I would check the OI on this. and see what positioning looks like tomorrow morning, after like 7:30 a.m. and just see what Friday's OI looks like. Because it sold off a little bit on Friday, but I'd want to see if people are buying the in the money calls. Like if in the money calls are being added after Friday's sell off, that may be the extent of the consolidation. Like it got its local high and then it's going to push again at 80, and if it does and breaks 82, 83, then it can keep moving. I don't need headphones right now. Bull is on the list. Oh fuck, I erased everything again. Oh yep, I fucking got rid of them all. Son of a bitch. Alright, that was Netflix. Yep, Microsoft. Already got Celsius. Alright. Dash. Short. MP. ABNB. WDC. TMC. Upstart. NBIS and FSLR. SOX. Your calls are single-handedly juicing my retirement portfolio. Nice. That's what I'm here for. Oh no, he became a Cornichon to join the stream. Well, we'll get it after, I guess. Can I tell him? Can I message him during the stream? I don't even know if he can see it. Oh shit, he can see it. Did you become a billionaire like immediately after that and I didn't get a notification? Or did I fuck up the stream parameters? Yeah, I'll pull up GLD. GLD. Did I get Bull? Bull EPAM, right? Is that everything? I think that's all the ones I was missing. Or that I accidentally deleted. Okay. Microsoft. This also looks a little bearish. Might be stabilizing a bit here, but the overall trend is declining. Probably the same story as Apple or similar. $821 doesn't hit like it used to. Wait, what? Yeah, a little bit of support at 480, and then it gets real choppy under that. Wait, what's the upside? Upside move would be back towards 5. Yeah, 480 is a decent support. 450 is the next major support to the downside. So it's kind of caught on the more bullish side of positioning right now, slightly. Ooh, this is like, yeah, there's a lot of put buying and call selling. Obviously, like the Ivy dove hard. So options are super cheap to realized, but I would expect realized to start to come down. Not a whole lot of room to the upside. Out above 500, the gains and gamma start to trim. Downside's getting pretty steep. I would say a move to 450 wouldn't even slow that much. Slows down a little around like 65, 67.50, and then 450. But even through 450, like down, doesn't really slow down again until like 425. There's quite a lot of range to the downside. Does look like puts are being bought, although some of them may be in the money, deep in the money puts closing. But these near the money puts are still targeting downside, and there's a few weeks on them, so it's not just like, you know, today. It's like out into the end of August. It looks pretty bearish. Call side, I would say calls are probably still being sold above 500, but these might be being bought. This little strip right here, these might be bought calls. These are probably all sold. So yeah, given the put positioning looks a little bit bearish. There's a gap down to 64.72. That doesn't seem like a bad target. They did try to turn this around a little bit Friday, and Friday was a decent day. GME, sure. I'd maybe wait a little bit, but under 480 is pretty bearish on Microsoft. If it holds above 480, then it's probably going to push back to 500 before another downside leg. There's an upside gap also, like what 495.40. Walmart. Trying to buy the dip on this. Looks like you and everyone else in the fucking market is. A bunch of puts closed on Friday. I mean, that's really all this is saying. But Gamma continued to decline. Like Gamma didn't snap back. So probably a bunch of puts added as well. This slipped into a very bearish part of the chain. So, you know, back to 100 is highly likely. I would say those are probably sold puts here at 100, 105. This is maybe a synth long. There's a little bit of support from Delta at 100, but if it slips 100, right down to 90. Skews a little favored. Options are very cheap, so puts are really cheap here on the 30-day. Pretty cheap on the 10-day too. I don't know if I would want to fuck with this, given the volatility of the drop and the fact that it fell all the way back below VN. I will say prices usually mean reverting back towards VN. It's very rare to stay under it for a long period of time, but we could. It would be quite bad, but it could. The pricing is very decent though, from a like historic perspective. The economy continues to grow. I mean, there's definitely more room for it to keep moving down, but I would say that we probably retest somewhere around VN, like 106, 105, and then maybe fail that and then leg down. So it might be like near term bullish, like longer term a little bit more bearish. These are like all the sold puts. Gamma turns positive out above 107, and then very very clear upside out above like 109. So above 109, very bullish. It's just a long way away from there, and it's got some resistance. But yeah, out above 109, it can get back to like 120 pretty fast. Let's see what people are doing. Those are probably bot calls, and those are probably sold puts. So yeah, people playing the reversal out to 110, out above 110. It weakens a little, but they're really people are targeting all the way out to like 115 and 120 as well. So I would say like almost. I mean, their earnings weren't that bad. We talked about this on Market on Close pretty extensively. If you want to find it, just look for the night of their earnings and then the market on close from that night. But yeah, it does look like there's dip buyers coming in. All right, so DoorDash, but for a short position. Yeah, that doesn't look good. Broke GM and GM fell. Probably profit taking on calls going on there for the drop in delta. Maybe some put buying. Not a lot of it yet, but a little. So some profit taking basically. There is room for this ramp to continue out to the upside all the way out to like 50. But delta's thinner out there, so yeah, maybe pull back towards like 210, 200, get support before the next leg up. Let's see if we actually did get put buying. Yeah, we did. Last since like the 16th, puts have been getting bought up, and they are cheap relative to realized. So at least on the 30-day. Same deal on the 10. Although Friday saw some of those bot puts pull back. So a little bump in IV down here at 220, and a little bump up here at 230, 235. Yeah, and the peak of gamma really, like, this is a more liquid chain. Peak of gamma is really like 30, 250, 230. Probably shifting down due to that. Looks like some in the money calls closed on the weekly. Maybe some out of the money calls added. 225, 230, but not a lot of them. Looks more like, yeah. So I think we did get bot puts, but just right at spot. So people aren't targeting like a big downside move. It does look like the sold puts are closing out further out of the money, which helps with continuation. So profit taking on a pretty big strip of sold puts between like 177.50 and like was that 200 or 220? Yeah, 200. Which does open up the upside, and then under 20 would accelerate or retest. Okay, so yeah, I don't hate it. I don't know if it'll get back to gamma max. Maybe. I would say it's more likely gamma max levels out after dropping Friday, but that still leaves room for like $10 a pullback. I would say it's better to sell puts with the premium, or sell calls with a premium sec. So maybe if it like pulls back and then HV falls, then there's an opportunity to sell puts. Ugh, fuck. I'm not getting enough caffeine at all today. All right. MP. Interesting. I don't like the second test. It doesn't look bullish. Like I know GM's moving up here, but GN is continuing to rise also. So this is probably moving up on sold calls, not bought calls. Yeah, I would say like the 65, 70s are probably being sold. 60 is interesting because, clearing it out to the upside opens that move to test this resistance. But a failure of 60 is pretty much a straight dump to 55. So like the pricing on this side is very like a little S curve, like gamma just dumps off. What side of that did this close on Friday? Friday was 60.05, so just barely held 60. Yeah, I don't love that. Yeah, and there's almost no motherfucker. There's almost no delta below spot either. All the way down to 50, actually. Delta's pretty flat. So if this fails, there's like the in the money calls here will close out. So I don't like the support very much. Maybe the sold puts act as some support at 50, but the calls will close, which will put pressure on the sold puts. This looks more like trying to save distributive price action. So like, I always talk about that with you guys, like how when you get distributive price action, when you get back to where the breakout started, bulls tend to buy in a second time, but that usually fails because they don't get the price improvement that was seen previously, but they buy in like all at once. And you very much have that here, right? You got this. So it broke out back here, moved up, profit taking. All the bulls that got left behind want to buy in again at the same price. So you get the gap up. But then this usually ends up not getting a higher high. Very, very rarely will it get a higher high unless there's like some fundamental reason for the move up. And you can see where the bulls bought in here on the wick. So like, if this pulls back, it's going to pull back hard. You don't have a fridge full of Celsius? No, I don't drink anything with fake sugar if I can avoid it. Or if I do, very minimal amounts of it. It makes me sick to my stomach usually, like sucralose and all of that shit. I just drink coffee or take caffeine pills. They're way better. And I definitely don't want to drink like thermogenic fucking energy drinks. A, I'm not 22, and B, I don't want to just have like the jitters while I'm sweating. Nice, just take like a 200 milligram caffeine pill and some like theobromine. Get a nice like little balanced over the counter upper. Huh. Well, Gamma Max has caught up with Spot while things have traded sideways. Calls are getting more sold here, although the delta is still like blown out in a very weird way. Hmm. Sometimes I just want to screenshot these so we can address like weird outlier bugs that we get on some of these like fucking insane earnings moves. Uh, All right. Well, fuck it. We'll ignore that. Just look at the rest of the data. So people stupid bullish, probably selling puts here. But there's always idiots. Big resistance, 190, 200. Um, Downside's real squeezy. It's all in the money calls. So, yeah, it looks easy to pull back. 170, and then there's a bit of 170 is pretty supportive, but loss of 170 can get back to like 155. That would be kind of fucking too much, I think. Um, a lot of this is also like summer, like the seasonal effect. So I'd be cautious of it. Slight improvement in skew. Options are very cheap on the 30-day. So are 10-day options actually. So the post earnings vol crash obviously got blown out. Um, Realized is going to need to come down. So yeah, maybe it picks up some put buyers. It does look like it's getting some here around like 180, 175. There's a little bump in IV for next week. 185 for the week after. 180 the week after that. Even this is skewing a little bit bearish, but just down to like that 170 level again. And 10-day skew is moving down. So the calls are getting sold without a doubt since like the 13th. Yeah, that really is the top of gamma right there at around like 195, 170. So there's not much more room to the upside. It's pretty easy to pull back to that next shelf. Although the actual test of 170 is a little tricky because the drop off flattens. But remember, these are all bot calls in here. Like this big bump. This is all bot calls. So like the underlying curve without the bot calls is probably more, like more like this. And so if these close, all of that supportive gamma is going to collapse. And that opens up like way more room to move down. So it really depends on how many of the bot calls like close out, which is a risky position to buy puts from, but they are very cheap relative to the realized. So if realized stays elevated, those options are massively underpriced. So maybe like in the money puts is good. That way like you're very unlikely to get blown out on them because there's just no gamma up here yet. But like you have to be sensitive to closing them, especially on a retest here, like 175, 177.50. But they are very very cheap. Even I could actually we could talk about this a little. Wonder. Might be a way to. Oh, nope, I didn't want to do that. Oops. Um. Uh, no. So it'd be like build. Might even be like something with like oh, where it is. Something like this. Sell the 200. Something like this. Even think, well, extend that. Yeah, I don't hate something like that. You could even shift it down a little and make it cheaper. Max loss is still big though, which is shitty. That's a little better. Maybe something like that, and capture a downside move. I mean, the problem with this is you probably end up closing it out like way early, like in here somewhere. That's still like 175% though. That's not bad. But like a broken wing could be advantageous. It might just be better to buy like the put, just buy like a 210 put. And then as long as it gets under 86, you're good. Well, 87 now. The only problem is there's not a lot of fucking OI on this. Maybe the 200. Even the 200 put doesn't have a lot of OI. It's like, how many contracts? OI is 25? Really? How thin is this chain? It's a little better. 65. I think maybe just they haven't bought in yet. Yeah, maybe they haven't bought in yet. This is also Friday morning, so their OI is not updated either. Um, hmm. Just seems fucking dangerous. You could trim that a little because the peak in gamma is like right at like 195 to 197.50. So we get back under 87.01, so 30 cents. I don't love that either. Maybe this. Like an in the money ratio spread. Ooh, I like this better. A little bit, I think. Well, that way, if you get the next leg up, right, above 211, you don't lose any money. Well, actually, at expiration, you just have to be above 207. So if it breaks out above 200 by expiry, and like bulls keep buying up, but if you get under 82, pretty good. Hmm. Hmm. Fair call. Maybe do like that, and then just buy the fucking put. But I don't hate that. I think I like the broken wing better though. Yeah. This is also break even at 87 locally. Get out into the end of the month. 86. That's not bad. Yeah, I don't hate just sell the call by the put either. It's a little bit better. Maybe 210, 200. No, that sucks. Yeah, that's not too bad either. 15 wide spread, and then buy the 190 put. Double the 190 put. No, I don't want to do that. Just want the put. Hmm. Test Friday the 28th. If it tested 175. Make about 167%. Yeah, that seems worse than the butterfly as well. I think I think the broken wing is probably the best trade on the top of this. A little bit of a weird setup, but anyway. And then like the only problem with the broken wing is if this collapses, you don't have the downside exposure. You got to buy like then it gets tricky because you got to like buy the put back, right? So you have to buy back the other leg, like the short side of the other leg. So with the call, broken call, it would be like you'd buy back the long call on like on a failure of 75, assuming these close out, and that way you just capture the short calls. But tricky, tricky without portfolio margin to leave calls naked. Maybe you just close the spread and buy a put at that point and hope for like the 150 test, like the downside continuation. Anyway, WDC. Looks shitty. Yeah, chain's not improving much. There's put sellers maybe down here, but I think they might be getting fucked. Support down at like 425. There's no delta between spot and 425 either. This is a pretty straight drop to the downside. There's resistance to the upside. Skew on the 30 days not bad. Options are a little underpriced. It does look like interest is mixed a bit, but more put interest than call. And that's probably here on the 10-day. Yeah, we're seeing some of the 10-day IV is pretty bearish. Even out here, these puts are getting sold, like the 430s. Wonder if we're seeing that. Yeah, so some of these puts down here under 440 getting sold, but these look bought. So I would say that this move is likely, the $20 move down. Although I don't like the fact that there's no fucking upside resistance at all. So I mean, I guess if it continues to push up, then it can break out. It looks like it failed that test already though on Friday. So it's more likely to move back down to like 440, 430. Down in here, fill the gap. It looks like people are targeting that. For a while. Drop off in gamma's pretty smooth. It's a flattish curve. Don't see any fucking OI change at all. That's useful. Maybe there isn't any. TMC. Jesus. Is this like a $2 stock? Why the fuck do we even have this? Alright. Big green candle, not always the most bullish thing in the world, but it does look like there was a big bump in delta, and all the options on it at $5 are getting sold like fucking crazy. So these are all sold. Just assume that all of the 5 and 7 are sold. So if they go in the money, they're gonna squeeze. Skew up, IV up. On the 30-day. 30 days are very bullish, but the 10-day. Also slightly bullish. There's room to move out to $8. Yeah, maybe despite all these being sold, it gets the move to 7. I would be afraid that 5 would be pinning. And it closed under 5 on Friday, which isn't a good sign. I get rejected pretty hard off of the $5 test. Exactly off the $5 test. So yeah, I would say bulls probably get fucked on Monday. But as of Friday close, they were still very bullish. There's a huge advantage to call sellers here, and I would be surprised if they didn't take it, like right it open. I don't know what the fuck it is. Some bullshit stock. Probably like some Trump scam. TMC, the metals company. Ooh, oh, it's a tariff thing. It may keep running. Actually, the bulls might be right because the tariff negotiations with Canada went to shit over the weekend, like after Friday close. So actually, the bulls might be right. So seven's like the upside. 750, maybe 8. Some Tesla guys on the board. All right. I don't give a shit about that. I mean, it's just like metals and Canadian tariffs. Sometimes it's good for me to check what the company does if I don't know. Upstart looks like dog shit. The chain's normalizing a little off of the low, but I don't know if there's a lot of upside on this. Probably not. Mm, I don't think a retest of 35 looks very good. There's sold puts out below 30. Failing 30 is bearish, without a doubt. Not a ton of delta out here either. So a lot of pinning at 30 too. Looks like it's pretty easy to fall and squeeze out the short puts that came in on the last bump. Um, there's a big advantage to call sellers on the 30-day. It's interesting. The 10-day puts are decent. Hmm. Gamma falls off pretty quickly to the downside too. So yeah, I would say it could pull back. It's probably not going to get back to like 24, but 2750 seems very reasonable. These puts are probably getting sold under support. The in the money calls is somewhat interesting. But this was remember this is from end of day Thursday, and all the out of the money calls are closing. Um, yeah, I don't. If it got back above like 32, 3164, it would look more bullish. But this looks terrible. Yes. Some of these just aren't worth trading. That's the only problem with letting you guys pick, is you guys pick some shitty stocks sometimes. Like shit with no delta or IV left on the chain. There's nothing like to harvest. It's just boring. Well, obviously the bounce in this got faded hard. It doesn't look like it's picking up any support. I think the last time we played this, it was to the upside, right? Fucking moved hard. Shit. Um, I feel like I should have played this. This can keep falling back to 210. That's very likely to. There's like a big pin here. Spot's gonna get stuck to that. and then see if it builds support or fails from that point. There's no fucking delta either, so yeah, I would say back to 200 is very likely. Options are pretty cheap. Skews to the downside on the 30-day. Or just, well, a little bit. Close to spot, it's skewed to the downside. Options are also really cheap on the 10-day. Looks like there's quite a lot of interest in the like 90, 200, 210 puts. Doesn't look like there's too much interest to the upside. A little bit. 220, 225, 230. Let's see what OPEX look like. OPEX looks kind of bearish too. 195, 200, 210. Maybe the 200 is getting sold, 210 bought. So put spreads possibly targeting the downside there. Drop off in gamma slows a bit. All right. Yeah, so gamma falls off slightly slower to the downside, which does slow down a drop, but I don't think it stops it. Sorry about the delay there. FSLR. I assume FSLR because of precious metals. Yeah, this doesn't look good. It's been dumping ever since we talked about it. Did anybody short this? Damn, we fucking nailed the top on this like the week, was it the week before last? Or last week? Fuck. I've got to start playing these. Is anyone keeping track of my win rate? That's insane. Okay. Well, it still looks bearish. I mean, Delta's still falling off. Some of that on the put side, but closed near the low at the end of the week. It's got a bearish bias into this week. Looks like it just keeps going down. I don't think the situation's going to change with imports on Canada getting worse. So, yeah. Plenty of downside. Well, I'm like, a lot of these are just repeat questions, and I'm noticing that I was like 100% right the last time. CGNX? Yeah, I'll throw it on at the end. Oh, fuck. Vol Stars was supposed to start. Son of a bitch. Uh, Sundays are so packed. Yeah, it looks bearish. Soxel. I think Sox S is still cheaper, so Soxel's just better. Yeah, Soxel's just way better. It's better to short Soxel than it is to go long Sox S. Just anytime you have like TQQQ and SQQQ, whichever one's worth more money is the better one to play because they're percentage based moves, and so notionally with options, the larger percentage will be off whichever one has the higher price. So Soxel, not Sox S. Um, looks looks like losing 120 is a big deal. Um, it's bearish. It's well below VN. I mean, semis are in a bear market. So, DN test is down at like 97, 95, which is where it looks like it's headed currently. There's been like slightly bullish accumulation since the 22nd, but it keeps failing, and it's currently failing a little, so it's getting faded. IV's relatively low to HV, so still cheap. A lot of IV to the downside of spot. IV is just insane anyway, but and then event vol picks up a bit into the end of the month. Um, Plenty of room to keep moving down. It's pretty deep into negative gamma, so let's see what people are doing on it. Bulls are targeting the upside. Oh yeah, this is big bear. Lots of in the money puts, at the money puts, out of the money puts. Does not look like people are positioned bullishly on semis here, especially with dispersion starting to break down. It makes sense that they'd probably be retargeting the lows. CRSP. All selling last two sessions. Uh, that wipe out all the IV. So big sold call walls at 60 and 65. Looks like it can pull back towards 55. Yeah, 55's got support. So maybe retreats a little bit off of here. There's a big advantage to selling calls, even though the VRP isn't very wide. It's already fading, so the gap is widening on the 30-day. And the 10-day, not quite worth it yet, but it looks like people are selling the calls anyway. Yeah, there's not a whole ton of room to the upside, about $10. Gamma falls off very quickly on a drop below where it's at right now. Like even a 55 test might actually be pretty bearish because the acceleration and the fall off of gamma to the downside. How much of this is on just sitting on top of bot calls? Like all these bot calls are very squeezy if those levels are lost. So if 55 is lost, if 50 is lost, you can get huge breakdowns in the bot calls below spot. And I think these are all sold. So it can turn around. I mean, call selling's definitely more advantageous on the 30-day window here. But this is still a lower high over July. left a big fat gap to the downside. So maybe retest that. That's right around 55, and then see what happens. But a little bit of advantage still to call sellers. It's closing quick though. Gold. I want to check my other chart for gold because gold keeps squeezing, and it's mostly just a dollar hedge. Carry. Yeah, so gold was still squeezing into Friday. I think the technical upside for gold is like it broke back up through its prior uptrend. So like the next important level on gold futures is like 47.82, 47.83.40. That's where and then like the reversal confirms up at like 49.17.70. So for GLD, those levels are going to be like here, 437.42, and then 448.70 to the upside. And this doesn't look like it's quite going to break out that high. It did already get above this high, 421.82. It's picking up a lot of delta pretty quick. Gamma's still rising. For all intents and purposes, the chain looks very bullish, but there is going to be some issue with there's a new gamma max forming out here on like 445 to 450, which I would say would be the target. There's delta building out there too. Skew's pretty high. Options are a little overpriced on the 30-day, but there might have been some selling on them on Friday, but not very much. And then I think we need to take skew down to the 100th decimal place. We need to fix that. Just in case you guys are ever wondering and you're looking at skew on Gamma Strike, and you look at this where it's lower and this where it's higher, it's because in the background we're calculating the next decimal place, but you can't see it in the foreground because we don't have it on the chart that way. So I'll see if we can just add that and make it easier for you guys. But because like sometimes that can be hard to see, but it is a shift. Skew 10 got a little more bullish. Also, options on the 10-day are a little underpriced. So I would say maybe more bulls keep piling in the short term. There's room. I mean, there's room to move up to like 435, 434. And you can probably see the call buyers. There's some here. Lots of in the money, like a whole big strip of in the money calls. Those weren't, some closed, but not very many. Some longer dated ones closed, but no puts, right? Like no puts anywhere near spot. So this is just breaking out completely. Yeah, I would look at like Gamma Max, and then like 34 above that would be a possible target for this to slow locally. So I'd say it's got another $10 on it, maybe. Bull's been doing good. They got a nice fat breakout. Oh, we finally got the 10 test. That's nice. This is still a giant brick of sold calls. It's a failure of 9 likely pulls back to 750. Yeah, this is just a pin. It's well, the opposite of a pin. Spot's just trapped. So, sold calls, bought calls. If it gets a downside test, maybe it starts to build up some sold put support, but it doesn't have a whole lot right now on the chain. Obviously, bull's not prepared for that move to the upside. I would say some kind of surprise news drove it. not an accumulation of bullish positioning yet. It does look like calls were sold off pretty hard on the 18th, and then again on the 21st. And that might be true here as well. No, the 10-day is a little bit more bullish, but overpriced. So yeah, I would say that it's likely that these get sold. These calls haven't been sold yet, but they will be. Yeah, 10's a good boundary right now. Very hard to move up above 10. I will say if it does, it can Vegas squeeze. So it makes sense for bears to defend 10, because yeah, things get real fucky out to the upside of 10. Like it can squeeze really hard. This is one of the reasons I was interested in this in the first place. Like there's a bunch of delta out at like 1250 and 15, and these are far dated. 2028, 2027, January. All right, same here. A lot of those like 2028 positions. These are a lot of 2028 calls. And the Vega on those, will increase IV like exponentially if especially if the 1250 strike were to go in the money. These would rocket in price and force the dealer to pick up like a ton of delta. And so this does get very compelling out to the upside of 10, although I don't think it gets to the upside of 10. And most of the buying still, still around $9, and then like people closing $10 calls on the upside test. These longer dated ones, so these might be bears pulling back a little bit on that sold strike, but not. They're adding, near term, and then also probably selling calls out there. And then short puts closing on the move up, but that's not necessarily going to help continuation. And it does look like some 950 puts may be bought in the money. So I would say this, probably keeps pulling back a little. Maybe back to 8. Maybe it holds above 750, but everyone needs to reposition, and there's a big chunk of delta falling off, like between Thursday and Friday, and probably get more profit taking tomorrow. EPAM, on the other hand, EPAM has been looking better and better. Gamma Max is starting to move up. It closed above Vega neutral on Friday, which is a big deal. Obviously, there was some call selling at the retest, so we'll see what the chop looks like after that. I don't think the upside gap filled yet. Close was 109.87. Oh, it did. We did fill the upside gap. Okay, so yeah, maybe we actually start pushing out. The accumulation on the chain's been very good. We're getting kind of like little volatile checks at the upside. There's a lot of sold calls up here, and the options price up a lot at 120. So obviously getting out above 120 would be very significant. There's a bunch of Vega out there. Out above 120 is like a straight move to 150. So this gets very exciting. We are getting a lot of sold puts in here, so lots of bullish positioning continuing to build. Like now like 90 to 105. If you guys remember before, it was like 90, 95. So more accumulation of sold puts, and probably starting to get some out of the money call buying being added. This looks good. I mean, it needs to continue to pressure that 120 level to break the wall there, but Friday wasn't great. A lot of calls sold into the end of the day, so we'll see if that recovers. The last one did, but we'll see. Options are still very cheap, so they're selling these calls at not great premiums on the 30-day. On the 10-day, probably more bearish. Yeah, IV's still a bit above HV, so still some advantage to call sellers here, but not a lot. So the call seller advantage is trimming on the 10-day already. That got snap closed really quick. But if you look out here, very bullish, like out at 60 days, out at 90 days. These are not only underpriced, but being bought, right? Like skews trending up over time on these, and IV is down on these right now. So IV is quite low, and even historically low. I mean, it's like lower than it was during most of like this like Feb through June period. So these are an attractive purchase for a lot of people if they're interested in it. GME looked like dog shit last week. It probably still does, but I'll take a look. Did we get the 18 test that I wanted? Close. Oh no, we did. 1780. Nice. Delta neutral's moving up. That's bearish. Looks like some bot puts closed. Gamma fell off a little. There's a bunch of sold puts at 18, but those are getting threatened repeatedly. Next step down is 16. Skew is still deeply negative, but there's been more put selling. And there is some advantage to those put sellers still. So we may keep seeing the 18 sold. Jeez. Fucking Christ. The negative skew on GME 10-day options is so insane. Yeah, there's still an advantage to selling puts on the 10-day also. Maybe the longer dated. Yeah, this is a little bit more attractive for going long. Although the 90-day IV picked up quite a bit. That was a nice buy-in. Jesus, historic fall fell so hard. HV is turning around a bit, but I don't know if there's a whole ton of it. There's a bit of interest. Yeah. I'd say if like IV 60, IV 90 continue to trend up, those are probably worth picking up here on the call side. But otherwise, I mean, I think locally it's still going to be really choppy, maybe more downs. So yeah, 16's the next downside target, but 18's support. It's really a question of if those 18 short puts get squeezed off. If they do, it'll drop pretty hard. And yeah. All right, what's this one? This one was new last week too, right? It's new last week. CGWX or CGNX. Looks like it bounced and then got support. Failed. Got support again. There's some put selling on it. Far out of the money. Gamma neutrals above DN. Yeah, I mean, this is a very stereotypical breakout, so I would watch, above the trend breakout. It does look like it's getting more support at the lows. Still a higher low than back here in July. Obviously, the bull side of that is negated under 57.17, but it does look like it's going to make another leg up. I don't know if that'll break out, but it does look bullish. It's a bullish setup on bullish consolidation. There's a lot of calls. 75 to the upside. Support at 55. That looks good. Skews didn't do too great on Friday, but calls are still underpriced. 10-day. Calls are a little underpriced on the 10-day too. Bit of a slowdown under 60, and it closed above 60 on Friday. So this is where support's building slowly. There's more support down here, 50, 55. So I would say it could still pull back to 55, which would be a much more bullish, like a much better entry, but entering here isn't terrible. There's plenty of upside. 65, 70, even 75 is a pretty good ramp. And it does look like those are being bought. Quite a lot of them over into OPEX, SEP OPEX. And also like November's not even slacking too much there. So pretty bullish. Looks good. I would say, I mean, watch the trend. If it fails that and dumps below GN, that's really bad. But otherwise, it looks well supported, and like the bullish positioning is slowly building as the bears fall off. So maybe watch for Delta to turn around if you want to be patient. Saw the ad blocker removed my question first. What was it? Is that star for favorites? Yeah. I don't know how it works, but that's what it's for. I think you press it and then, yeah, and then the tickers show up at the top of the search. Do you guys have that in prod? No? I don't know if that got pushed. I don't think we pushed that yet because it's fucky. But yes, it is for favorites. Anyway, that's the end of the tickers. Oh, Fubo? Fuck me. Alright, fine. I'll do Fubo real quick. I'm already fucking super late to Vol Stars. They're gonna be angry with me. Fubo looks like it's falling back through DN. All the calls are sold. Yeah, bunch of sold calls. Above 10's bullish, but it's not above 10. Yeah, Ivy's getting crushed. The skew's way up on the 30-day, so like all the bullish skew. So yeah, calls are overpriced. People are selling them. 10-day is not the same deal. But it no, 10-day kind of is too, but the 10-day skew is very, very put favored. So people probably selling short dated puts, selling long dated calls. Support's back at 950, maybe 9. Gamma's gained really fast to the upside out to like 1150. There's just a big fucking wall of sold calls at $10 that's hard to get over or stay over. I guess we'll see if they keep selling the put, and then the calls might get squeezed. But it doesn't look great right now. I'd like for the like Gamma and Vega to improve, but I think the old chain's like fucky, and I gotta get Dork in here to like clean it up. Anyway, that's what I got. Thank you guys. I will have Pickles picks out tonight, and if you didn't watch Market on Close, comment on it or like it. Go do that from Friday. I did a big one.